With many checks and balances, laws are created by a legislature and reviewed by a judicial branch. Ultimately, the passage and administration of those laws must go through the executive branch. In the constitutional republic that is the United States of America, the physical location of the executive branch is the White House. In our constitutional republic of the state of Idaho, the physical location of the executive branch is located on the second floor of the state capitol building. Please join us every other Wednesday at noon Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time, as we get insight and commentary regarding Idaho politics from the unique perspectives of two former gubernatorial candidates. Allow me to introduce A.J. Balukoff, a successful Idaho businessman who has served as a trustee of the Boise, Idaho School District Board and as its chairman. He is currently an owner of the Grove Hotel and the Steelheads hockey team. And Russ Fulcher, an international businessman who has worked in the tech sector of Idaho and served as an Idaho state senator and majority caucus chairman in that body. He currently is a full-service real estate agent and a business broker. Each will take 2 to 3 minutes to address from their perspectives a few timely and relevant issues. Then they will entertain questions from Idahoans. We welcome you to the second floor. Recently, KTVB broke a story about potentially serious underbilling for Medicaid reimbursements otherwise payable to our local school districts. The claim of $30 million of such underbilling was made. The two departments involved, Education and Health and Welfare, quickly issued denials claiming these figures were from national averages and not Idaho numbers. Actually, these figures were developed locally by the largest state vendor for Medicaid billings, and with the smaller rural districts billing in excess of $1 million annually, and the estimate being made that the Boise district should be billing in excess of $5 million, why is it that Boise billed about $500,000 last year since federal law mandates that districts pay certain medical expenses for Medicaid eligible students and there is complete funding available for the reimbursements? Why does the Boise district neglect to do the billings and instead cover these expenses that are guaranteed to be covered by Medicaid and pay for them from property taxes? Is this not double taxation? Why doesn't the Boise School District do that job? Why does the state of Idaho continue to budget more for education while our local districts neglect to maximize this very important source of funding?
Let me start off on that one, since they're aiming that at the Boise School District, and I'll have to tell you that I'm going to have to do a little research to find out how accurate these numbers are. But I remember 3 or 4 years ago this issue came up, and we raised the issue with our administrators, and at that time we found that compliance with the rules and regulations and filing for those reimbursements actually cost more than the money we would have received from the Medicaid reimbursements. So that's why we didn't do it. You know, it's foolish to spend $1.25 to get $1 back. So that's why we didn't do it at that time. I'm going to have to check with our district employees and find out if that's still the case or where we're at on this.
Yeah, by the question itself, it doesn't make sense to me. So your explanation of the cost of that compliance would actually make more sense. And I think I've found in other areas too. I know that some physicians have told me that the cost of complying with various insurance regulations have skyrocketed so much that it's not worth doing. But I do think the question is a pertinent one because it's a symptom to a bigger problem. And our schools have been their budgets have grown and their needs have grown so much, and I think that is because we're asking them to do things they were never designed to do. And generally speaking, I see us more and more expecting the school system to raise our children, and that's not the optimal place to do it. It's a tremendous expectation. It's a tremendously expensive, both socially and professionally and economically. Long term, and you're much closer to these things being part of the school board than I am, but from my vantage point and the experience on the Senate Ed Committee, long term we've got to redirect the efforts to empower our educators so that their primary function is educating, and structure a scenario where there is the obligation of family members to take care of those kids and raise those kids. And there is an opportunity and an obligation for the free market to take care of these health and provide those health needs. And there will be some circumstances where, as last resort, there is a need to implement a health and welfare strategy. But the objective should make that the exception and not the rule. And hopefully we'll be able to redirect things that way over time.
We need to. When you look at the changes in education over the last 50 to 70 years, we are tasking our public schools with more and more responsibilities beyond educating kids.
Right.
And again, it's a question of where that line is drawn. When kids come to school hungry, they're not in a very good condition to learn adequately. And really the ultimate answer is, once you get parents engaged in their child's education, the whole dynamic of education changes. And we've got to find a way to do that.
And, I think it's a good point. And I think it's further evidence of that. Sometimes there's a tendency to compare private schools and public schools in some of their performance aptitudes and whatnot. By virtue of the fact that folks have expended the money or have the resources to implement a private education, that in and of itself is evidence that parents are motivated to be involved with that student's education more so than perhaps some of those in the public schools. And so maybe not quite an apples to apples comparison there, but I think your point on parental involvement is critical. Parental involvement always yields, I should say almost always yields, I think, better performance from the students.
No question about that. And since you brought up private schools, the point I would make about private schools is they demonstrate that engaged parents, less red tape, and more money produce good results.
Except for the private schools I'm familiar with take less money, and it's because they're not burdened as much.
Well, again, less red tape, but you look at the tuition of the private schools, and that's they spend a lot more than most public schools do.
I see just the reverse on that. Maybe we'll come back on that.
We'll come back and
maybe
cover that another time.
Maybe that's in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.